Chapter 4. Women, Marriage, and Power. 3 months have passed since the raid. Summer is in full swing, which in Norway means nearly 20 hours of daylight and temperatures that occasionally reach a balmy 60 degrees Fahrenheit. The settlement is bustling with activity. Hay is being cut and dried for winter. Fish are being caught and preserved. The sheep need shearing. And you're about to witness a wedding. Viking weddings, you'll discover, are not the romantic affairs of modern imagination. They're business transactions, political alliances, and property exchanges that happen to involve two people who may or may not have met before the arrangement was made. The bride is Astrid, the Jarl's 16-year-old daughter. She's being married to Bjorn, the 25-year-old son of a Jarl from a neighboring fjord. This marriage will cement an alliance between the two families, combining their resources and preventing potential feuds. Astrid has met Bjorn exactly once, briefly, when the marriage was negotiated 3 months ago. She has no say in this arrangement. Her father decided, and that's that. You watch as Astrid is prepared for the ceremony. The women of the household surround her, dressing her in the finest clothing the settlement can provide. A long wool dress dyed with expensive blue woad, an embroidered apron, multiple bronze brooches and necklaces, a wreath of flowers for her hair. Her face is carefully neutral, showing no emotion. You can't tell if she's happy, sad, terrified, or resigned. Probably a mixture of all four. One of the older women, Bjorn's mother, is giving Astrid advice in a low voice. A wife's duty is to manage the household and bear children. Your husband will raid and travel. You will stay home and keep things running. Submit to him in all things, but manage the household with a firm hand. Thralls will test you. Don't be soft. This is the reality of Viking marriage for women. You're expected to be simultaneously subservient to your husband and an iron-fisted manager of a complex household that might include dozens of people. The ceremony itself is a mixture of pagan ritual and de-legal formality. It takes place outdoors, near the longhouse, with the entire settlement gathered to witness. The groom, Bjorn, stands waiting. He's dressed in his finest as well, a clean wool tunic, leather belt with an ornate bronze buckle, and his best weapons prominently displayed, a sword at his hip, an axe in his belt. A Viking man is never without his weapons, even at his own wedding. The ceremony begins with sacrifices. A goat is brought forward and slaughtered, its blood collected in a bowl. The Gothi, the local priest who serves the Norse gods, dips a bundle of evergreen branches into the blood and sprinkles it over the bride and groom, the gathered witnesses, and the ground itself. Blood for blood, the Gothi intones. Life for life. May this union be blessed by the Aesir and the Vanir. May it bring prosperity to both families and many strong children. The actual marriage vows are shockingly brief and transactional. Bjorn's father and Astrid's father, the two Jarls, step forward. I give my daughter Astrid to your son Bjorn, Astrid's father declares. Her bride price has been paid. 20 ounces of silver, 5 cattle, and a ship share. She brings with her a dowry of household goods, 10 sheep and the loom from her mother's house. Bjorn's father nods. The bride price is accepted. The marriage is witnessed. Let no man dispute this union. That's it. Astrid and Bjorn are married. The entire legal ceremony took maybe 5 minutes. But the celebration, that goes on for 3 days. Tables are set up outside, loaded with more food than you've seen in one place since arriving in this time. Roasted meats, pork, mutton, even some beef, a luxury reserved for special occasions. Fish prepared in various ways. Bread made from precious wheat flour instead of the usual barley or rye. Butter and cheese. Dried fruits that were traded from distant lands. And mead. Rivers of mead. The Jarl has been brewing for months in preparation for this wedding. Massive barrels of the honey wine are tapped, and drinking horns are filled and refilled constantly. The feasting begins. People eat with the desperate enthusiasm of those who know food scarcity intimately. Plates are piled high. Meat is torn from bones with teeth and fingers. Grease runs down chins and forearms. Between courses, there's entertainment. A skald, a professional poet, stands and begins reciting. But this isn't poetry as you know it. It's a highly formalized, complex form of verse that follows strict metrical rules. The skald is reciting Bjorn's lineage, going back 5 generations, listing his ancestors' accomplishments. Every raid, every battle, every significant achievement is cataloged in elaborate metaphors called kennings. The feeder of ravens, he says, meaning a warrior who kills many men, whose bodies feed the battlefield ravens. The ship's tree, he says, meaning a warrior who stands tall on the deck of a longship. The breaker of rings, meaning someone who distributes wealth to his followers by breaking apart gold arm rings. This goes on for nearly an hour, and everyone listens respectfully because this is how reputation is maintained. Your lineage, your family's deeds, these are your identity. The skald is literally reciting who Bjorn is in the social order. Then he does the same for Astrid's lineage, though noticeably shorter. Women's accomplishments are measured differently. Who they married, what children they bore, how well they managed households. As the sun sets and the mead flows more freely, the mood shifts. The formal ceremony is over. Now comes the part that makes you deeply uncomfortable. The bedding ceremony. Bjorn and Astrid are led into the longhouse by a procession of drunk, laughing guests. They're taken to a specially prepared sleeping area, a space that's been separated from the rest of the longhouse by hung cloths. The crowd doesn't leave. They stand outside this flimsy barrier, shouting encouragement, making crude jokes, waiting. Astrid disappears behind the cloth, her face pale. She's 16 years old, married to a man she barely knows, about to lose her virginity with a crowd of drunk Vikings standing 10 feet away, listening to every sound. You hear rustling, low voices, then silence, then other sounds. The crowd cheers. Someone starts a chant. The mead keeps flowing. This goes on for what feels like forever, but is probably only 15 or 20 minutes. Then Bjorn emerges, grinning, his tunic disheveled. The crowd erupts in celebration. "Is it done?" Someone shouts. "It's done." Bjorn confirms. Behind the cloth, Astrid remains hidden. You imagine she's crying, humiliated, in pain. But that's not something anyone here would acknowledge or care about. This is her wedding night. This is normal. The celebration continues through the night. People drink themselves unconscious. Fights break out and are broken up. Songs are sung, growing more vulgar as the night progresses. You find yourself sitting with some of the older women who are gossiping about the match. Bjorn's a good man, one says, sipping her mead. Strong, good reputation. He'll provide well for her. His first wife died in childbirth, another notes. Hopefully this one is stronger. She's young, a third woman observes. Good for bearing many children. If she survives the first few births, she'll be fine. They're talking about Astrid's life like it's a business venture. Will she produce children? Will she survive? Will she manage the household well? These are the metrics by which her success will be measured. Later, you overhear a group of men discussing women in general, and their views are enlightening in the worst way. Women are necessary, one says philosophically, deep in his cups. They make cloth, prepare food, bear children. But they're weak, emotional. They need men to guide them. Some women are strong, another counters. My grandmother, Thorhild, she ran the whole settlement after grandfather died, made all the decisions. No man dared cross her. That's different, the first replies. A widow with sons grown. She's earned respect. But young women, they're foolish, easily led astray. That's why fathers must choose their husbands. A third man leans in, lowering his voice. I'll tell you a secret. The Christians, they have strange ideas about women. They say a man should have only one wife, that he shouldn't have concubines or bed thralls. Can you imagine? The others laugh. What kind of man has only one woman? How would he know if he's truly virile? This is the Viking view on relationships. Men can have wives, concubines, and use female thralls sexually. It's expected, even celebrated as a sign of masculinity. Women, on the other hand, are expected to be faithful or face severe consequences. But here's where Viking culture gets complicated, because it's not quite as simple as men rule, women obey. The next day, after the heaviest drinking has subsided, you witness a remarkable scene. A dispute has arisen between two families over a property boundary. They bring the case before the Jarl for his judgment, but the Jarl is hungover and still half drunk from the wedding feast. So his wife, Ragnhild, steps forward to settle the dispute. She listens to both sides with sharp attention, asks pointed questions that cut through the bluster and get to the heart of the matter, and renders a judgment that both parties grudgingly accept. No one questions her right to do this. No one suggests that as a woman she shouldn't be making such decisions. Ragnhild is the Jarl's wife, and in his absence or incapacity, she holds his authority. This is the contradiction of Viking women. On one hand, they're property to be married off, expected to submit to their husbands, valued primarily for their ability to produce children and manage households. On the other hand, they can own property in their own names, initiate divorce, run businesses, and in some cases, wield significant political power. You learn more about this from Ragnhild herself later that week. She's overseeing the thralls as they work on textile production, a never-ending task. You're helping repair the loom, and she talks while she works. People think men hold all the power, she says, her hands moving expertly through the threads. But they're fools. A man may be Jarl, but who manages his household? Who controls the stores of food and supplies? Who decides which thralls do which work? Who keeps the accounts of what's owed and what's owing? She glances at you to make sure you're paying attention. I know everything that happens in this settlement. Every barrel of grain, every salted fish, every ounce of silver that comes in or goes out. My husband may make the grand decisions about raids and alliances, but I make 1,000 small decisions every day that keep this place running. She's right, you realize. The Jarl may be the official authority, but Ragnhild has her hands in everything. She controls access to resources, which means she controls people. And divorce, she continues, warming to her topic. People think women are trapped in marriages, but if a man beats his wife beyond what's acceptable, if he fails to provide, if he's impotent, a woman can declare divorce. She takes back her dowry, often gets a settlement, and returns to her family. What's beyond what's acceptable, you ask? Ragnhild shrugs. A man has the right to discipline his wife, a slap or two if she's insubordinate. But if he breaks bones, if he draws blood, if he harms her ability to work or bear children, that's excessive. She can divorce him for that, and he'll be shamed. So domestic violence is acceptable, but only up to a point. It's a depressingly low bar, but it's something. What about the thrall women? You ask, thinking of the nun who was raped on the return voyage. Ragnhild's expression hardens. Thralls have no rights. A man can use his female thralls however he wishes. It's his property. If a thrall bears a child from her master, the child is a thrall unless the master chooses to free it. She says this matter-of-factly, without any apparent moral qualms. Has your husband... You struggle with how to phrase the question. Has he bedded thrall women? She finishes for you. Of course. Most men do. I'd prefer he didn't, but I don't make scenes about it. That would be unseemly. As long as he doesn't neglect his duties to me and our children, what he does with thralls is his business. The casual acceptance of this is jarring. But you're learning that Viking morality is very different from modern values. Things that would be considered rape or sexual slavery today are simply normal ownership rights. Over the following weeks, you observe the newly married Astrid settling into her role. She's moved to her husband's settlement, a day's journey away, but news travels back. She's pregnant within 2 months. This is celebrated as a good sign. She's fulfilling her primary purpose. But you also hear whispers. Bjorn has been rough with her. She's been seen with bruises. But no one intervenes because that's his right as her husband, as long as he doesn't go too far. You also witness a very different kind of marriage situation. An older widow named Sigrid decides to remarry. But unlike Astrid, Sigrid has power. Her first husband died 5 years ago, leaving her with 3 grown sons and significant property. She's one of the wealthiest people in the settlement in her own right. When she announces she's chosen a new husband, a man 15 years younger than her, no one questions it. She has the wealth and status to make her own decisions. At her wedding feast, which she's paying for herself, she makes a statement that shocks you. "I marry Knut because I choose to," she declares to the assembled guests. "Not because my father commands it, not because I need protection, but because I want a companion and a man in my bed. If he displeases me, I'll divorce him and find another. I've earned the right to live as I please." And no one argues with her. The older women nod approvingly. The men, even the Jarl, show respect, because Sigrid has played the game and won. She survived her first marriage, bore sons who are now successful warriors, managed her property well, and now has the independence that comes with age, wealth, and proven capability. This is the other side of Viking women. If you survive long enough, if you play your cards right, if you're smart and tough, you can achieve a kind of power. But it's always conditional, always based on your relationships to men: daughter, wife, widow, mother of sons. A woman's power is real, but it's derivative. You witness another aspect of women's power during a disturbing incident. A thrall woman is accused of stealing food. It's a serious charge. Food theft threatens the entire community's survival through winter. The Jarl is away on a trading voyage. So Ragnhild handles the accusation. She questions the thrall, who denies it. She examines the evidence, which is circumstantial. She consults with other women of the household. Then she renders judgment. "Guilty," she declares. The punishment is mutilation. She loses her right hand. You watch in horror as the sentence is carried out. The thrall woman is held down. A sharp axe is brought. One blow, and her hand is severed. She's screaming, blood pumping from the stump. It's cauterized with a red-hot iron, the smell of burning flesh adding to the nightmare. She'll likely die from infection, but if she survives, she'll be crippled, even less valuable as a worker. Ragnhild watches impassively. This is justice. This is her right and duty as the lady of the household. Later, you can't help yourself. "That was harsh," you say to her. She looks at you like you're an idiot. She stole food. In winter, that could mean the difference between life and death for free people. Would you prefer I let thralls steal with impunity? Where would that lead? You have no answer. "I am merciful," Ragnhild continues. "I could have had her killed. A mutilated thrall can still work, somewhat. She'll serve as a warning to the others." This is Viking justice administered by a woman. No softer, no more merciful than when men do it. Perhaps harsher, because women who hold power in this society can't afford to be seen as weak. You're learning that Viking women are not the empowered warrior princesses of modern fantasy, but they're also not helpless victims. They exist in a complicated space where they have certain rights and powers, but always within a framework of male dominance. They can own property, but usually inherit it through fathers or husbands. They can divorce, but only for specific reasons. They can wield authority, but usually as extensions of male power. They can be respected, even feared, but primarily when they're older and have proven themselves. And beneath all the free women, regardless of their status, are the thrall women. They have no rights at all. They can be used, abused, bred, or killed at their owner's whim. One evening, you're helping in the longhouse when you overhear a conversation between Ragnhild and another high-status woman named Inga. They're discussing the new thralls taken during the raid. The dark-haired nun, Inga says, "She's pretty. You should breed her. Mixed blood thralls fetch good prices, especially if they're attractive." Ragnhild considers this. "Perhaps. I'll wait until she's recovered from adjusting. Then we'll see. Gunnar might do, or Thorkel. We need more thralls for the expansion next year." They're discussing breeding human beings like livestock, choosing which man to force on which woman to produce the most valuable offspring. And they do this while making plans for the evening meal and discussing whose loom produces the finest cloth. It's just another aspect of household management. This is the reality of women in Viking society. Some have power, real power, but that power is often used to oppress other women who have none. The gender dynamics aren't simple oppression. They're a complex hierarchy where some women collaborate in the oppression of others in exchange for their own privileges. That night, lying in your sleeping spot, you think about all you've witnessed: the arranged marriages, the casual acceptance of domestic violence, the sexual use of thralls, the power some women wield, the powerlessness of others. Viking society isn't egalitarian, but it's not quite as brutally misogynistic as some medieval cultures either. Women here have more rights, more power, more agency than women in many contemporary societies. But those rights come with caveats and conditions, and they're always, always in the shadow of male violence and the threat of force. A free woman who's clever, tough, and lucky can carve out a life with real authority, but she does so by navigating a world where she's still fundamentally considered inferior, where her value is measured primarily by her relationships to men and her ability to bear children.